What's his name? Peter.
Yeah.
Hey, Peter.
Hi, sweetie. Is that nice?
My feet hurt. My ankles hurt. My uterus is hurting. Can I have some water? Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, men that are strong are looking for something to protect.
There's this really beautiful thing called polarity. I kind of already regret this decision because I'm on my period and oh my gosh, I am hurting. My hips hurt, but he's so cute and I'm so glad I get to hang out with him every day of my life. He's my best friend. You guys marry your best friend. It's a really good decision. I thought I would bring you guys with us on a little hike. It wasn't intentional, but I was thinking about how it'd be fun to do a more like vlog style content. So it's a little more entertaining. You can see a little more of our life. But I thought I would talk about, we would talk a little bit about how opposites attract in couples and why. We had a client who was asking us that question, and we might share little bits and pieces along the way on our hike. So if you're watching this, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy.
I was thinking about how, like when we're babies, all we have is I want. And
Needs.
we have needs, exactly. And I feel like when you're connected to that, like when you're first born, when you're first coming out of the womb, all you are aware of are your deficits. All you're aware of are the things that you don't have because you don't have anything you desperately need and are dependent on mom and dad to give you those things. But then if your parents don't want to give you something, whether that's like connection or comfort, nurturing, something simple like that. Let's say you learn for the next 15 years of your life, or let's say just the next 10 years of your life, you learn that you don't have access to that. Well, that need doesn't go away. It just, you have a huge hole that starts to fester, huge wound, just not getting a need met, not even abuse, just not having a need met. Becomes a wound. That wound becomes this vacuum that tries to find a way to get healed, get filled in any way that it can, and it becomes twisted. So maybe I learn to, as a boy growing up, to get that from porn, or maybe I learn as a boy to get that from
that meaning comfort.
That comfort, that nurturing. Maybe I learned to get it from men. You know, maybe an uncle comes around that's unhealthy. Maybe, you know, there's something that's like crying out to get that need met and becomes twisted because I haven't learned how to get that met in a healthy way.
On the other hand, there's this really beautiful thing called polarity, and we're naturally drawn to and we gravitate to the things that we don't have internally or in our lives. And that's where a lot of attraction happens, is when there's polarity. Whenever you can see that contrast between two different people, our souls naturally crave that because it becomes like the other half, all of the things that you lack and don't have. Oh my gosh. So beautiful already.
I think too, as human beings, we can't not have a God. You know, there's so many atheists that are like, there's no God. And like, God isn't, like, we all have this thing in us that's wired as human beings to have something in our God spot, whether it's God himself or an idol, right? That's why God says, have no other idols besides me, or have no other idols before me. It's interesting because I feel like while we're trying to run away from and we feel reactive to maybe God as Christians, or in religion, or maybe we have a really bad experience with a leader, or we have a really bad understanding of scripture, or we have a twisted understanding of who God is, how he was, his nature. We get reactive, but then we think that we can somehow not have a God. But a God or an idol is just something that saves you. Whatever we worship is our definition, carries our truth.
Another word for worship too is whatever we give the most of our time, money, and attention to is typically the thing that we're worshiping.
Yeah, it's whatever carries the most weight over our desire, destiny. A lot of people worship a spouse, or worship
God.
Career, or where they find their significance.
I'm gonna stop here.
You do?
Yeah, it's pretty.
Cool.
Wow.
But if God is not in that God spot in your heart where he's actually the place that you feel like is your first access for love, connection, your highest source of love, affirmation, affection, connection, significance, validation, you're going to look to every other source that feels closest or safest, and that will be in your God spot. If I have work in my God spot, I'm going to be really getting my significance from what I do, how I perform, if the boss recognizes me or sees me. If a spouse is in your God spot, when they're angry or mad at you or upset, you're gonna do whatever you can to make sure that there's peace.
Or it totally ruins your day or your week because that person's not okay.
So they have control over your state, your being. We're wired as people to have a God spot so that we can have him in that spot, so it's safe.
Another thing I was talking about with my best friend this morning is even ways I knew Spencer was in my God spot is there were seasons where he was so caught up in working and he was such a performer. He's grown and gotten so healthy and so connected to God in a lot of ways, but there were seasons where he'd neglect himself and he wouldn't take care of himself. And he grew up doing that. He would pour out and wouldn't want to take care of himself. And I knew the value of taking care of myself, but I was so codependent with him that there were seasons that I wouldn't even properly take care of myself because I was frustrated that he wasn't taking care of himself. Is that how you say it? Yeah. I was so frustrated that he wasn't taking care of himself. I'm gonna stop. That I wouldn't even take care of myself because I was so frustrated that he wasn't taking care of himself. In my alone time, I'd be thinking about how frustrated I was that he wasn't getting full. So I wouldn't get full either. But that's codependency. It means he was in my God spot. So I had to get to this place where I was like, it doesn't matter what my husband does. I'm not gonna wait for a person. I'm not gonna wait for an event in my life to happen to get what I need, or to be full, or to be the woman that I wanna be, or have the connection with God that I wanna have. I'm gonna do it regardless of them. And so sometimes codependency is, and having someone in your God spot is you not moving because you're waiting for someone else to move. And you'll stay stuck and trapped if you live like that.
You'll blame the person for not being where you think you should be.
Oh, and I totally did. I blamed you.
Yeah, you were a blamer.
I was a blamer.
But to bring it back to polarity and why we're attracted to opposites, I mean, just look at men and women. Masculinity is looking for softness and nurturing, and it's deeply, deeply craving and desiring femininity, which is a polar opposite. Men that are strong are looking for something to protect, and then twisted strength looks for something to manipulate and destroy, right? And unhealthy masculinity is abuse and destruction. Healthy masculinity is protection. But that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that opposite to us.
And polarity and femininity, let me talk about pure polarity with femininity first. Femininity is tender. It's soft, it's creative, it's welcoming, it's warm, it surrenders. It doesn't need to be in control. It doesn't need to have power or authority. It doesn't need to be the decision maker. But then you have twisted femininity, which all twisted femininity is most of the time is, in a way I see it commonly played out, as a really controlling, domineering woman, or a manipulative woman, or seduction and lust, trying to have power. There's such a deficit of getting our needs met in childhood, and this can manifest in a lot of ways, but it's going in childhood without having our needs met for so long, or not seeing healthy femininity or healthy masculinity. So the woman, if she's lacking masculinity, oftentimes will become a little more masculine. So she's a little more controlling. She leads the household, or she's seductive and lusty and needs to have a lot of control or power or authority in her life.
But I think too, even if it's twisted, it's drawn and attracted to its opposite.
Yeah.
It's looking for strength. Like, how many women can attest to, like, I don't know why I keep attracting bad guys, like the bad guy that's powerful and owns himself, but it's kind of abusive or hurts me. You know, it's like you're looking for strength, but your twistedness is actually finding a way to get, it's like attracting a twisted version of masculinity. It's like, because I don't recognize this thing and because I'm going about it in a controlling manner, it's actually attracting someone else that's unhealthy, but we're trying to get that hole filled any way we can.
So opposites attract because one human isn't balanced and sufficient in everything that they have. There's scriptures that says, and then two is better than one. And then there's verses that say man's not good on his own. And so there's something where, like, we in each one of us are lacking something if we're an island, if we're doing everything alone. But you look at like a marriage, what ends up happening is there's always, I'm gonna pause for a minute, babe. I'm tired. There's always some kind of polarity happening. So like, if you are in a marriage, the woman, if she watches a man start being powerless or weak or soft or feminine, or he's not leading or making decisions, you'll notice the woman will start to become more dominant or domineering. Or the woman will be domineering, and so the man will get a little more feminine and become more passive and let her be the leader and the decision maker.
And then what happens? There's less attraction.
And then there's less attraction because there's less polarity, because the woman is stepping into the man's role and the man is stepping into the woman's role. One thing I've really learned over the last couple of years is how to get into my softness, how to drop into my femininity, how to make time and space for creativity and for painting and for running up hills and mountains and floating in the water and doing things that feel like nurturing to my soul and to my spirit. And that has helped me really get out of that masculine, like controlling, leading, speaking, being on, building a business. I do a lot of things throughout the day that are really masculine traits, and so I really have to actively get into my femininity, but it makes a lot of space for this guy to live in his masculinity. So I know we had a few random thoughts and we don't have a conclusion with any of it, but I think one thing that I want to tie up with is that polarity in a relationship is really healthy. It's actually what creates attraction, is whenever two different extremes come together. It's why you typically find like the introvert who's married to the extrovert. I'm the introvert in our marriage and Spencer is the extrovert. Or you have the one who really likes budgeting and being really wise with money, who's me, and the person who likes to play and to spend and risk and have crazy experiences. But I need him in my life. If I had another man who was really introverted, I'd probably do nothing all the time. No, that's not true. I would adventure all the time, but I wouldn't talk to people or socialize, you know? And if there were two of me in our marriage financially, we might have a good savings account, but I'd be really lacking in experiences because I'd be stuck with a poverty mentality. But he balances me out.
And actually, our savings account has grown because of our polarity.
It has grown because we actually have pieces and wisdom to offer each other. And so it's not...
Because opposites doesn't have to be just the unhealthy.
Yeah, opposites doesn't mean you have to stay opposites either. It doesn't have to be extremes on either side. It just means you each have part of the balance that the other person needs.
It also doesn't mean unhealthy.
I want to ask you a question now.
Okay.
So I'd love to hear from you, babe. What are other things that I'm opposite from you in? Ways that we balance each other out?
I would say adventure. I would say taking lifestyle risk. You know, I was somebody that could be in my room forever and I could just work. And I loved working and growing and building and performing.
And I would die inside if you stayed in that work bubble.
And so her polarity is like, man, I'm drawn and attracted to this thing that gets me. It's like she thinks differently, and we've hit our heads against each other when we're both battling control. But when it's good, it's like she gets me out of the house. She gets me to places like Hawaii. She helps me to understand that there's way more to life than just working and building and performing, you know? And so I was really drawn and attracted to that.
And one thing I want to hit on before we go is that a lot of people are looking for what they don't have in a spouse. So if you don't have fun cultivated in your life, you might be like, I just really need someone who's really funny. And you might be, what's the right way? Like limiting yourself by trying to get your needs met through a person who has what you don't have. And that can also be unhealthy. So you want to be like, okay, what are the things that I'm feeling like I'm lacking in my life that I want to cultivate, and not wait for someone else to come and complete me? How can I cultivate those things in my own life? How can I get those needs met from God? How can I get those needs met in healthy ways in relationships so that your future spouse or spouse doesn't become your God in those ways where you need them in order for you to live a fulfilling life?
We were just talking about like polarity, and we were just talking about like healthy masculinity, healthy femininity.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Similar conversation.
Yeah, I guess so. We're like,
our conversations are emerging.
Matches.
If you're on my YouTube, then you can say hi.
I think one thing too, like to recognize, like let's say for relationships, because it's really easy to identify unhealthy moments. If a guy, let's say, goes to the beach and he keeps feeling his eyes get drawn to this woman, you know, and his spouse or his girlfriend's not there. And it's like, man, why do I feel this draw? Well, if he were emotionally healthy, he might be able to stop in the moment instead of letting it become lust, and recognize, like, what is it about that moment or this moment that I feel like there's this pull and this draw? Well, there might be a lack of nurturing. There might be a huge deficit. There might be something that makes you feel drawn to this person. And if you go on a journey of discovering that, there'd be way less twisted forms of getting deficits filled. You know, same with the woman. If a girl goes to the beach, sees this guy,
Or
needs to be seen by a guy, it's like, what's going on here? What's that attraction? Does that guy that you're wanting to look over at you or you're drawn to, what does he carry? Strength? Does he own himself? Is he respectful? Is he safe? Is he powerful? Like, what is it about that guy that's drawing you in? Go on a journey so that you can get that need met in a healthy way.
And one takeaway that I'd love to give you guys is, if you could do what Spencer's saying and check in a moment, like, man, what is it about that person? What is it about this thing? What's going on in me? What am I feeling like I'm needing? What do I feel a deficit in? If you can reflect and get aware in a moment like that, it actually gives you a key to figure out, wow, I'm in a deficit in this area, but now I know the area because I was drawn to it in another person. So inviting God in that moment and asking God to meet that need, or getting it met in a healthy way in relationships.
So I know we couldn't cover everything on the topic, but hopefully it's some thoughts that help you understand more of polarity, why opposites attract. And it's actually a deeper journey into self-awareness and healing, to be curious about those things, like, what am I drawn and attracted to? Is that actually something that my heart has been deeply craving for a long time? And why? And is a husband really going to fix that for you? maybe or maybe not.
And if you're someone who is in a spot where you're like, I keep attracting the same kind of people, whether it's men in relationship or whether it's friendships with women, I keep attracting the same thing and I don't like it and I don't know why, then we'd really encourage you, like, go on a journey and take a deeper look at some of those things. If you're wanting to change that, typically it looks like changing your inner world first and figuring out, how do I get my needs met in a healthy way? How do I get self-aware? How do I learn how to connect with God in these areas and invite him in practical ways so that I can be full and not complete, not lacking nothing, but so that I can be full and satisfied in God, and then have another person be a gift to me.
Yeah. And so if anything, like, let this be a journey, let it be an invitation. And if anything, just know, like, if you are waiting for a spouse to save you or like heal you, it's actually more going to trigger it's going to trigger everything inside of you. It's going to be a mirror that comes up against your face, showing you the inner parts of you. So if this is sparking some good process for you and you are wanting to learn more about you and find out why you've been drawn into unhealthy cycles or relationships, or you want to get more aware of yourself and heal and grow and build a thriving marriage, or
Very handsome.
thank you, and step into more of your destiny and your identity, then that's the stuff that we love, and that's the journey and the process we've been on for the last 10 years ourselves, and overcoming limiting belief systems, pain, trauma. And so if that's you, like, definitely either check out our free training, which is a lot more in-depth on this stuff. It'll give you a lot more practicals, and you'll hear a lot more of our journey and our vulnerability. And so there's a link for that. And then if you want to look into our programs and actually see if there's a program that's a good fit for you and your journey and your process and our coaching, then click the other link and book a call with our team, and they'll pick your brain, they'll find out more about your journey and process, and hopefully see if we can help.